Welcome to Playson Experience. Indulge your senses with immersive game titles. Boost the excitement with our engaging promotional tools and generous network promotions. Be in control with XI Viewport Management Tool and experience seamless gameplay powered by X Platform. Enjoy Playson Experience as our partners do in over 20 regulated markets. And get ready to go big. Big play is on. Playson.
And we are live, coming at you live and direct from Wimbledon, London, and from Munich, Germany. It's me, Conor Mulher, and my co-host, my sidekick, my ride or die, the one and only Mr. Nico Jansen. Nico, how are ya?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good as always. Has been a lot of fun the last couple of days. So, funny enough, we did not speak since Nexio Valletta. So, how was the show for you, my dear friend?
I loved it. We did a very short version of our weekly news on stage, sort of live on stage at Valletta. So that was pretty special, wasn't it? Yeah, I had a fantastic trip, Nico. It all seems like a distant memory now. Now I'm just getting ready, looking forward to next year. How about you?
Same. Funny enough, a lot of things actually happened because I signed a deal. A shoe deal with Tots. So that's why I have these nice shoes, orange versions. And there are rumors going around that I'm the only guy actually being able to wear those shoes. So while I was at the event last week and Malta as well, there had, as said, rumors being going around like, hey, everybody's speaking about the shoes. So, sometimes you just need to deal with the real influencers if you want to get a name out there. And it actually worked. Nobody cared about any other topic. It was like, hey, I like the shoes, yada, yada, yada. So all good. So as said, I'm doing pretty well. As of now, there's a bank holiday in lots of the states and in Germany, as example here in Munich. But as an entrepreneur, you're working 24/7. So we couldn't care less. But it's quiet and nice outside.
Nice. Well, working as hard as you do, Nico, it comes with its rewards, of course. And I'm pleased to see that your shoes are the same color as your Bugatti. So that's a very nice matching set that you've got there. Now, we're not going to talk about Nico's shoes all day, although I'm sure we could. Instead, we are bringing you today a US update. We've had, as you are about to find out, quite a busy week in the US sports betting, iGaming, and land-based sectors. It's been a busy week for gaming in the US. And we're going to come on to some of the main stories in just a few minutes. But first and foremost, Nico, why don't you give us that classic rundown that you do so well? It is, of course, your trademark, the 10 in 5. Take it away.
Thank you. So the state senator of New York voices the disapproval of Mets owner's $8 billion casino. State Senator Ramos has notified Cohen and Hard Rock of her decision to not move forward with legislation that would allow the project Metropolitan Park to be a reality. So it is just next to the stadium of the City Field, and this should be turned into a 8 billion casino. And she states, I will not introduce legislation to alienate Parkland and Corona for the purposes of a casino, said Ramos in a statement. We want investment and opportunity. We are desperate for green space and recreation for the whole family. We disagree on the premise that we have to accept a casino in our backyard as the trade-off. It's quite interesting as we will touch down on taxation because states tend to love the money, the taxes, but they don't want to deal with the industry itself. It's quite a trade-off, but it will be funny. So, resignation of gambling minister leaves industry with further election uncertainty. As of now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the UK as the limbo that the gambling industry was left amidst Rishi Sunak's surprise decision. He's the Prime Minister of the UK to call a summer election was elevated upon the announcement that Gambling Minister Stuart Andrew would be resigning following the dissolution of parliament. His resignation is a result of changes to the constitution he represents. The resignation of Andrew underlines the following: an election parliamentary governments of the sector is set to undergo a significant change. Who would have thought that there's a significant change to the legislation in the UK? So fingers crossed, there will be some things which will be in the favor of the operators. And then decrease in Denmark's April GGR to Danish crowns of 595 million. The Danish gambling regulator has released the nation's figures for gambling spend in April, with combined GGR for betting, gaming machines, land-based casino, and online casino. They are facing a decrease of 6.9% to Danish crowns 595 million Danish crowns, which is equal to roughly 80 million euros. So, quite interesting if we're talking about decreasing numbers, especially in Denmark. Hold your horses, because since the 1st of October 2023, it is mandatory for players to identify themselves with a so-called player ID when buying bets at a physical retailer. And guess what? Numbers are going down. Black market is happy, couldn't be happier, but this is what happened to a lot of the markets already. Still staying in the Nordics, as Bet365 and SGA have appeals over 2021 penalty fee rejected. Leading global betting brand Bet365 and the Swedish gaming authority SGA have had their appeals on a dispute originating in 2021 rejected by a Court of Appeal in Jönköping. The Court of Appeal in Jönköping denied both appeals and kept the penalty fee to Swedish kronas 400,000, an amount which they called well balanced. Staying in the Nordics, as the historic fine of Kindred is once again reduced to 30 million Swedish kronas. The Administrative Court of Appeal, also in Jönköping, has ordered a historic fine for the Spoonica subsidiary of Kindred to be reduced for the second time, with the amount now being set at 30 million Swedish krona. So the initial fine from March 2020 was set at 100 million krona. So we will see where this will end. As of now, it seems like a quite interesting story. Go from 100 probably to 50 million, now 30 million. At one point, they will just, agree on, okay, eBay is on me, PayPal is on you. Let's agree to 25 euros. So the Dutch market feels the strain as miners engage with illegal websites. New research carried out by the Dutch affiliate trade group KVA and shared with the iGaming Association of VNLOK and NOGA has found that Dutch miners are able to access unlicensed online gambling websites and gamble on them without restrictions. Who would have thought? But I'm pretty sure the KSA, run by my uncle René Janssen, they will not play around and they will find a way to, keep the miners from dealing with black market operation. Staying in Europe, as Bulgaria now ruled compliant with global AML standards. Bulgaria's fortified anti-money laundering AML rules, including tougher oversight of the gambling sector, are now compliant with international standards according to the Council of Europe's oversight body called Moneyval. So, if you want to invest, Bulgaria is your place to go. My Price goes live after raising 13 million from Silicon Valley investors. Quite interesting article as well by Sonia. Silicon Valley-backed crypto operator My Price has launched its online casino platform in international markets, along with sweepstakes platform for US users. My Price is led by Zach Brook as CEO, and Brook was previously ran Recur, an NFT platform that raised 50 million Series A before closing its doors 2 years later in August 2023. Brooke was also one of the top traders using FTX and is one of 9 people chosen by the US Department of Justice to serve on the FTX Creditors Committee. Cutting a long story short, it's his third try and all the best. And usually you fuck up 2 things and then the third becomes a really success story. So once again, shout out to him. Then heading over as Donald Trump is backing up Bitcoin. A cryptocurrency, an area Trump has been touching on more and more lately, came up just under half an hour into his speech. The Republican Party 2024 presidential candidate seems to be keen to present himself as a big supporter of US crypto, in contrast to the actual president of Joe Biden. Citing Trump, I will support self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin, and I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. So crypto is still on the move. And last but not least, a headline we've been waiting for so long, the ex-MGA CEO Farrugia found guilty of leaking secrets to Jorgen Fenech. Malta's magistrates court ruled yesterday, 27th, it was on a Monday, that Farrugia revealed official secrets by informing casino mogul Jorgen Fenech of an upcoming raid on his rival's casino. So, he's now found guilty, but he will not face jail time. But I'm pretty sure it's not the last ruling on this case. So look it up. It was quite interesting what was happening there in Malta. And this has been my 10 and 5.
Very nicely done, Nico. I think you should take a breather after all that. That was your 10 in 10, as usual. You did well. But that's okay. We didn't have the countdown timer, so nobody knows exactly how long you ran over. But no, good job. And as I mentioned, lots of stories from the US there and lots going on over that side of the pond this week. Not least, one of the big stories that has captured people's imaginations and seems to have had quite a negative impact on the gambling stock market is that Illinois has voted to increase its sports betting tax rate as part of its 2025 state budget. So on Sunday, the Illinois Senate approved this budget, which included a change from the existing sports betting tax, which was a flat rate at 15%. That's going to be replaced now with a progressive tax depending on how much revenue you generate. And it's going to go all the way up to 40% for the biggest revenue generators in the state. So just to give you an idea of the numbers, and any annual revenue up to $30 million will be taxed at 20%. Anything between $30 and $50 million will be taxed at 25%. And anything between $50 and $100 million will be taxed at 30%. Then anything between $100 and $200 million will be taxed at 35%. And then anything over 200, they're going to put on this maximum 40% tax rate. And that has now been approved by both the Senate and the lower house in Illinois. And it's currently with the governor, J.B. Pritzker, for approval. So as soon as that gets signed, then that change is going to be totally confirmed for the 2025 budget. Now, Nico, obviously, this isn't the first state to start generating a bit of revenue from sports betting and suddenly decide that actually we're going to hike up the rates. I mean, where else have you seen this kind of thing in recent years?
Yeah, so recently in Ohio, increasing from 10% up to 20%. Then we've seen this one in New Jersey as well, where, casino had been taxed with 15%, sports betting with 13%. Now it's going up to 30%. And Illinois the sports betting tax increased as well from 15% to 35%. And it seems like, and that's a quite interesting story, when they allowed sports betting in New York, taxation is still with 51%. And if you just talk to people, they were like, okay, Nico, we just needed to get this through. So this was our commitment with 51% of taxation. It seems like they created an appetite for other states to actually, get this easy money, the low-hanging fruits, as well as, the established operators will not sneak out of the markets. And that's why this is your story. This resulted in quite an interesting thing. And just pick us up where you just left us.
Yeah, so we had quite a lot of sort of negative reaction, both from the industry and from the markets. But first and foremost, we had the Sports Betting Alliance that represents FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and Fanatics. They issued a statement this week in opposition to the tax hike. So President Jeremy Coudon said this is an extremely disappointing decision that will cause real harm. This tax hike means worse products, worse promotions, and inevitably worse odds for Illinois customers, and therefore a leg up to offshore unregulated sportsbooks. He said sportsbooks across the industry will have no choice but to reevaluate their level of investment and participation in the state should this become law. So he's kind of I don't want to say threatening, but he's kind of suggesting there that maybe there'll be a lot less money invested in Illinois by these businesses as a result of the tax increase. Now, let's see what the actual impact could be, especially, obviously, when we think about the progressive tax rate, and it's only 40% for anyone making more than $200 million a year in the state. Obviously, there are two players that come to mind. So we're thinking about what the impact's going to be on the likes of DraftKings and FanDuel. And we had some good analysis from JMP Securities, who tried to kind of measure what the impact might be. So they worked out that basically FanDuel would pay a tax rate, an effective tax rate of about 35%, and they would therefore pay $150 million in taxes in Illinois. That would be a 139% increase from the $63 million it would pay under the current system. So just for one operator, the tax contribution jumps from $63 million to $150 million. Obviously, that's a huge amount of revenue for the state to use, but it does have a big impact on FanDuel and Flutter's bottom line. It basically represents about 8% of FanDuel's 2025 EBITDA expectations. So it's a pretty big chunk of change, Nico. If you compare that to a much smaller operator like BetRivers, they would have an effective tax rate of about 25%. Which would leave them paying about $20 million. That's still a 67% increase, so still lots more revenue for the state, but that's equal to about 2% of BetRivers' expected 2025 EBITDA. So it's a smaller amount, and it's also a smaller proportion of its expected earnings. So obviously there's going to be a kind of outsized difference here in what different operators are going to pay. Now, JMP, I think you should all go and follow the QR code for this story because you'll be able to see all this analysis in full. But JMP sort of said that those impacts are only going to be taking place if the operators don't adjust their strategies and their spending, which obviously this is going to impact them. They'll probably spend less money on promotions, less money on marketing and advertising to try and make back some of that lost revenue. But yeah, they said the tax would be financially harmful to any company in Illinois sports betting, but is also representative of a larger issue. And just as you pointed out, Nico, they said the last year has brought on a tax rate increase from Ohio, now Illinois. and also New Jersey and Massachusetts flirting with the idea of increasing their rates. The floodgate is now open, and state legislators have found a way to increase tax revenue with little to no effort. Well, it does kind of seem that way. It's now that, like you said, now that the legislation's in place, the market's live, the lawmakers can see just how much money it generates. It's very easy then to adjust the existing system and just say, no, we're putting the tax rate up. And that's what we're going to do. Now we have a picture I think we can show you as well, just to see how the markets reacted to this. So over the past 5 days, you might be able to see there, DraftKings shares are down 17%, Flutter Entertainment's down 10%, Entain's down 10%, and MGM's down about 5%. So thank you, Lorena, for showing the picture. I think that kind of reflects, Nico, how diversified those businesses are. You know, DraftKings is pretty much a pure play US sports betting proposition, so big impact there. Flutter, FanDuel is obviously an incredibly important part of Flutter's business today, but it also has diversified operations around the world, and the same goes for Entain and BetMGM, so the impact's been slightly less for them. And then obviously MGM Resorts International has its land-based business and all the rest of it to kind of decrease that impact. But there you have it, Nico. Seems like a lot of people are not very happy about this. What do you make of it?
Yeah, pretty much the same. So when talking about the US, we're speaking big numbers. On a monthly basis, the sports betting handle just in New York, the state of New York ranks about 1.82 billion US dollars, which is an incredible number compared to whole Germany, where we're speaking about a yearly handle of 9 billion. Which New York makes easily within 5 to 6 months. And this number, and this is where it gets interesting, represents just 1/3 of the overall market, as 2/3 are considered as black market operations. And guess what? If you increase the taxation, the operators probably need to de-invest within or into the product, which will drive even more players into black market operations. So of course, the states can make a quick buck, and it just reads like this, increasing the taxation for no reason, from roughly 10%, 12% to 30%, which is more than doubling the taxation. 51% of New York is just crazy as well. And I'm pretty sure within the next 2 years, either the duopoly of FanDuel and DraftKings will even increase. As of now, they make up 70-75% of the overall market. They hold 70-75% of the overall market share. And usually duopoles ain't good for any kind of, innovation, etc. And as already, mentioned within the 10 and 5 in the Netherlands, you can't prevent players from actually, signing up for illegal operations. It's just one click. Maybe you need to use a VPN or whatever. So sometimes, a quick buck ain't good in the long run, and I'm pretty sure we will see this effect in the US as most of the states actually increase the taxation.
Yeah, I think that was one of the other things that JMP said, is that if you're going to take this trend alongside all the consumer protection stuff that we're starting to see more and more of in the US, the market's been very bullish for the last 6 months, say, or a year. But there might be a bit of a bear market on the way when it comes to some of these stocks and shares, because that belt is beginning to tighten, let's say.
Yeah. And that's why the big companies also diversify their portfolio, invest into Brazil, for example. So I'm pretty sure we will see a shift, especially within the US, 30, 31, 32 states. licensed sports betting. Everybody's waiting for California. Will California ever happen? We don't know. Will Texas happen? We don't know. Will Florida open up? There is another story we will discuss in a short period of time, just as a cliffhanger. But that's for sure why the big names and the big companies are about to explore different different geolocations as well.
Yeah, absolutely right, Nico. And indeed, we do have maybe some exciting news in the Florida question. Maybe not, but we'll see. But we're going to be back in just a few seconds because first we have a very short video message to share with you.
Games, hundreds of studios, dozens of hub market partners, an industry-leading hub wallet, and just one API. Hub 88 is connecting businesses to a world of limitless content where the possibilities are endless. Hub 88.
There you have it. We're back. We're back, and we are going to discuss the latest update in Florida's sports betting market. There is an ongoing case in Florida, as you know well, Nico, between the Seminole tribe, who owns and operates the Hard Rock brand, and some plaintiffs who are challenging Hard Rock and challenging the Seminole tribe about whether the state compact that they have with the state of Florida to offer sports betting throughout the state is enforceable and legal and all above board or not. And there's a latest update in this case, which is that it's going to be reviewed by the US Supreme Court on the 13th of June. Nico, have you been following this one?
Yes, I've been following this one, especially the initial one, when Florida actually opened up, and then out of a sudden, all operators needed to shut down. No, first of all, Hard Rock, so representing the Seminole tribe, already started operating. Then they needed to shut down as there had been, things being filed and handed into to the courts. But the numbers which the Seminole tribe, Hard Rock, actually generated within that short period of time had been very, very promising. And of course, it was a money-making machine already. But one more thing to add to the taxation story, which we just finished, because not all states in the US actually hop on the milk the gaming operators tax increase train, especially in Massachusetts, as during a Senate budget discussion, Senator John Keenan proposed an amendment to more than double the taxation, the sports betting tax rate within the amendment OTH 828. But the Senate just rejected this amendment, as it works to finish the full year 2025 budget had already been ongoing. So not everybody just jumps on just milk them even more, and shout out to the wise decision there in Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure they will gain a lot of benefits on this decision. But sorry to just add this one in between our Florida topic, and I'm happy to pass over the microphone once again to you, Connor.
Thank you, Nico. Yes, good point. And yes, you're quite right to point that out. It's not happening in every state. But yeah, in Florida, so the main question of this case is basically whether the existing kind of monopoly that Hard Rock and the Seminole tribe hold on Florida sports betting violates or not the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, because that has an Indian land requirement, which means that any bets placed have to be done so on tribal land, cannot be done in the rest of the state. And so at the moment, the agreement works on what they call a hub and spoke compact, where the servers are based on tribal lands, and therefore the bets are processed through tribal land. And in that way, they've been able to kind of create this system that in theory is compliant with the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. Now, there's been a lot of discussion into a lot of different courts. That's why, you know, none of these things go automatically to the US Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. It's been back and forward through state courts and state Supreme Courts and all the rest of it, and now it's coming right to the top. And on the 13th of June, the court's 9 justices will decide the future of the case to see if the sports betting monopoly is compatible with federal law. So basically, the final brief in the case was submitted by West Flagler. This is the consortium of opponents to the Seminole tribe who are insisting that this is not legal. They argued that the compact breached that regulatory act that I mentioned before, as well as other federal laws and indeed the US Constitution. I think that's why it's ended up at the US Supreme Court. And according to Dan Wallach, shout out to Dan, who's been very vocal about all this on Twitter. He's also been involved with the case. He's submitted amicus briefs to various courts and that kind of thing to help them understand the relevant arguments. But according to Daniel, the Supreme Court decision is likely to be announced on the 17th or the 24th of June, so just a few weeks away. And there are basically 3 options that the Supreme Court can have. It will either deny or grant what they call certiorari, I think, which means that, so basically, either it will go up for discussion in the court and be decided on its merits or not. Or it can offer a third option, which is called summary reversal. Now, statistically speaking, by far the most likely option is that they will deny certiorari and it will not be discussed any further, and that will mean that the current system remains in place. Denial occurs in more than 95% of the petitions that are presented to the Supreme Court. Obviously, they have limited resources. They can't deal with everything that's put in front of them. And that would leave the state courts as the only remaining vehicle to challenge the compact. And so if that happened, I think it would be very likely that the case would kind of die. But if the Supreme Court does grant certiorari, the court will decide the case on its merits, and those involved will submit merits briefs and engage in oral argument, probably excuse me, in late 2024 or early 2025. And the third option, I don't know if this is perhaps statistically speaking the least probable, but they could also offer what's called a summary reversal, which means that the court simply reverses the previous court's decision, and that would result in a kind of ban of online sports betting overnight in Florida. So in that case, we could end up with a similar situation to what you were describing before, Nico, where people go live and then they can't go live and they have to plug in and plug out, and all very complicated. But that can only happen with consensus across the court. So all 9 justices would have to add their names to that ruling. But that's not impossible, because Justice Kavanaugh, who's one of the Supreme Court justices, has previously said that if the compact authorized off-reservation betting, then it likely violated the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which is what it's all about anyway. So these processes are always so long, Nico, it's hard to know when you get into the end of it. But it seems like we may finally get a once and for all final answer on the Florida question pretty soon. Obviously, Hard Rock and the Seminole tribe are going to be hoping to maintain their monopoly because it's a huge market, and if they can keep it all to themselves, then I think basically they don't need to spend their money trying to compete with FanDuel and DraftKings in the rest of the states. You know, they can take a several percent market share across the US, and that would be, you know, a big money maker for them. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much the same which you just pointed out. And just to give some numbers, so if we just take the GDP of Florida itself, it would rank in between the 15, so 1-5 biggest GDPs globally. So they generate a GDP which is as high as Spain. So if you could be the ruler of Spain and offer your sportsbook exclusively to each and everybody in Spain, I'm pretty sure you would, and you should, and you will go for it. And just, we are dealing with this specific topic for more than a year. Just remember when Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, just ruled like, no, it's okay. Seminole tribe is going to rule it. That's it. That's my decision. This decision had been overturned. So, of course, now it escalated to the highest court. And it will be quite interesting how the highest court will actually decide. We had pretty much the same ruling all over Europe as well, as a lot of operators were offering their, gaming operations, holding a MGA, a Malta license. And their argument was like, okay, the bet is actually processed here in Malta. That's why, of course, taxation just applies in Malta. Guess what? Of course, each and every other state wanted to have their piece of this kind of good-looking pie as well. And they were like, it ain't the issue of where the bet is processed. The only thing that matters to us is where are your customers. And if it's a German customer, you're gonna pay taxes in Germany or the UK or wherever. So we've seen this already in the European Union. As said, they had the same argument, like, okay, bets are processed in Malta, on the servers in Malta, but they decided on where the players actually reside, and this was all over Europe. But I'm pretty sure the US will come up with even a more interesting decision of the court. But fingers crossed, we will for sure see a market which will open up to all the other operators, as there's always one ruling: competition keeps you in condition.
There you go. That's it, Nico. Couldn't have put it better myself. I think that's our final word on the US update today. That's the biggest headlines for you. There are, of course, more stories happening and developing all the time, and you know where you can find all the latest information. It is, of course, at next.io. So all that remains to be said, I think, is thank you to Hub 88 and thank you to Playson for keeping us coming back every week with your support, and thank you to everyone for watching in the audience and for commenting on LinkedIn and YouTube. And Nico, most of all, thanks to you.
Oh, so kind. Made my day once again. And also shout out to Kenny. Greetings back to Stockholm as well. So our fan base is growing and growing and growing. And it's always fun seeing you and talking to you and discussing the latest and greatest of our awesome industry with you. And looking forward to the next exhibition, wherever this might be. And that's it from my end.
Actually, you reminded me, Nico. Keep your eyes peeled for next week, because we may have a very special episode. Isn't that right? We're going to have a good one.
Yeah, we're going to have an awesome one, an SEO special, where we will be joined by industry legends who will, give us a bird's view all over the SEO, what happened last with the updated or with the Google update algorithm, etc. It's always some kind of rat race. And we will for sure give some insights with some well-known experts. So keep your eyes open for next week's episode. This will be a banger.
Yeah, more details coming soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Nico. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I know it's not Friday yet, but a man can dream. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Hundreds of studios, dozens of Hub Market partners, an industry-leading Hub wallet, and just one API. Hub 88 is connecting businesses to a world of limitless content where the possibilities are endless. Hub 88.